Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs, presents the official podcast of Dawgs on Demand on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. On today's program, we'll give you the latest news from the world of University of Georgia athletics and more. And now, from the broadcast studios of Dawgs on Demand, here's your host, Chris Hall.
Chris Hall here for Dawgs on Demand on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and all those other places. And our program, of course, brought to you by Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs. When it comes time for you to finance or refinance your home, go to southeastmortgage.com/UGA. It's good to have Aaron Murray with us, of course, and everyone knows Aaron, UGA great, commentator for ESPN. And when we want to talk serious football stuff, we always say, well, let's get Aaron on the line, and we'll talk with him about things going on with UGA. Well, Aaron, welcome to our program today. Happy New Year to you. And what about that? 2 national championships in a row. Who would have thunk it, huh?
I mean, after not winning for 40-plus years and to be a part of some of the heartbreaks over the past decade plus of close but no cigars type moments for UGA to win, yeah, like you said, not just 1 but 2. It's you gotta have to pinch yourself. That like, oh my gosh, Georgia is, no pun intended, top dog in college football. Like they are at the top of the mountain, and everyone else now is trying to figure out how do we become like Georgia. How do we have success on defense and offense, and what's the secret going on in Athens? And I think the secret is they're just really good in a lot of areas, from academics to facilities to coaching to recruiting and the wealth of recruits you can get in the state of Georgia and the surrounding states. They have everything to offer. The nightlife, the downtown Athens is the best, we all know, in all of college football. Like as a student athlete, you get everything you could possibly want. That's the secret sauce. Other universities, you may get 1, 2, 3 of them. Georgia, you get every single thing. So that's it. It's so we all have known this. It's a sleeping giant that Kirby woke up, and they're on top of the mountain. And right now, I don't think they're going to give up that spot anytime soon. Yeah,
it's just an extraordinary season, topped off by, that Ohio State game put me through the ringers. Now I'm too old for that kind of business, but Georgia, won that game amazingly to me, won that game. And then you go into the national championship game, and, you got guys saying, well, TCU, they're going to hang with Georgia, and a lot of guys were picking TCU. I never thought that. I didn't think TCU had the studs and, had the team to hang with Georgia. Then Georgia wins 65-7. I mean, it's amazing. Now, a week after that game, we've had time to kind of digest this thing with a 15-0 regular season or season, SEC champions, back-to-back national champions. You've touched on it already, but just your thoughts a week away from winning that national championship. Just your thoughts about not only this extraordinary season, but last year as well. Just how do you assess this time in Georgia football history?
Well, first off, I was with you for that Ohio State game. So I was on the call for ESPN Radio for the Alabama-Kansas State game in New Orleans. So my wife and I were there. I called the game. I got on a flight, landed in Atlanta just as the game was kicking off. So I'm, listening to the game. I essentially listened to the first half of the game on ESPN on my radio. And, it was a tight game. And then I get to my parents' house. We're watching our 2 kids. And I'm sitting down watching the game with my dad. And we're pulling our hair out. I think I looked at him like midway through the third quarter, end of third quarter. I was like, I don't think we're going to win this game. Like, I don't. Like, I do not feel good that we're going to win this game just based on kind of how they were playing and CJ and Marvin Harrison. And it just seemed like it was just the perfect storm. Like they were having a perfect game. And that's what you needed. In order to beat Georgia this year, you had to play A+ football, and Georgia had to play, B-ish football, depending on what kind of caliber team you were. And it was just one of those nights where that was happening. And, and to see the game end the way it did and all the excitement is like, wow, okay, we survived. And same thing that you were kind of alluding to too, Chris, is, I didn't give TCU any chance. Like I was on a million shows leading up to that national championship, and everyone just kept asking me, like, what does TCU need to do to win? What does TCU? I'm like, guys, TCU's not going to win.
Yeah.
Like, let's just get it over with. Like, this is going to be a really bad, not a very entertaining national championship unless you're a Georgia fan. They don't have the caliber of player to do that. Plus, Kirby Smart's going to get these dudes pretty pissed off based on their performance versus Ohio State. You're going to get the best Georgia football team in this game, and that happened, and that being obviously the big blowout. So, that was kind of my reaction to the past couple weeks of just on the field from stepping back and seeing Georgia as a whole over the past 2 years. It goes to, Kirby Smart first off,
Right.
the leadership that he has taken when the role he's taken over as the head coach, his leadership, his work ethic, his ability to recruit, his ability to motivate. I mean, those pregame speeches have me wanting to run through a wall and put that this helmet on my back on and go out there and play again. He can motivate like no other. He can get those guys ready to go. I've been to a ton of practices, the way they compete every single day. It's just amazing, man. He has built a winning culture, a team first culture, which is hard to do in today's world with NIL, with the transfer portal. He has built an atmosphere and an ecosystem in which players want to come. They want to compete. They want to grind. They want to get better. And like I said, they want to put the team first. And I think that is, to me, the most impressive thing that he's done in an era where that's just really hard to do.
Yeah, it's remarkable. As you look back on this season, starting in Oregon, it seemed like who knows how many years ago it seems like, but you look back on this season. There's always turning points, I think, in a season where you can go one way or the other, win this game, this play, that kind of thing. In your mind, what were some of the turning points for this season that brought Georgia to where Georgia wound up as the national champions?
I do think that win versus Oregon kind of reaffirmed to them in that locker room that we are elite, that we do have a chance. Because a lot of times it's just belief, man. Like you have to believe in that locker room that you can go out there and win big time games and big time moments. And I think that was a moment that kind of allowed them to kind of feel like, oh man, this could happen again this year. I thought the Missouri game was a big point too for them to say, hey, when things aren't going bad, or when things are going bad, we can find a way to rally the troops and still find a way to pull out a win, especially on the road. And then the last one to me was that Tennessee game.
Yeah.
And the big question was, can Georgia handle a high octane offense with an elite receivers, with an elite quarterback, a good running game, and they proved that they can win that type of ball game too and dominate on the defense side of the football. So to me, those were the three games, obviously, along with the Ohio State game. But regular season wise, those three are the standing points. One, Oregon, we know we belong again this year. Missouri, when things aren't going great, we can still find a way to win. And then, we can stop on defense. We can stop elite offenses and slow them down in their tracks. So those were the three really, really pivotal moments, in my opinion, this season for them.
Georgia was obviously more than a one-man band, but Stetson Bennett, you got to talk about him a little bit. What a remarkable season he had. What a remarkable career at the University of Georgia. I know you've touched on this at different times during the season. And where do you rank Stetson Bennett in UGA football history? We've talked about it. It's the stuff that movies are made of, and I'm sure somewhere down the line we're going to have a book and a movie and that kind of thing. But in your mind, where can you put Stetson Bennett? He would be on the Mount Rushmore of Georgia football greats for me. Where do you rank him in UGA football history?
Yeah, so I had him number one quarterback after last year. Kind of what he did, how he played in the playoffs, won the national championship. And then, what he's done this year, elevating his game, the big plays and big moments, from Oregon to Tennessee to LSU to Ohio State to the national championship. It's like, what are we? And the hard part is it's how do you want to rank these players? Are we ranking them on pure talent? Are we ranking them on accomplishments? Are we ranking them on how we portray their NFL career is going to be, how they fit into the next level? It's like everyone has their opinions based on that. For me, I like to rank it on, you came to Georgia to do one thing. You came to win championships. Who has done that better than anyone else? It's been Stetson, and he has played exceptionally well in the biggest of stages. And who else has been a 4-time MVP in the playoffs? No one but Stetson Bennett, who's won multiple national championships. Stetson Bennett, who's won an SEC championship. Stetson Bennett, like he has done everything, in my opinion, of what you needed to achieve, GOAT status. So, maybe it's because I didn't live in the time of Herschel Walker. Maybe I wasn't I wasn't a Georgia fan when David Pollock played, and I knew David Pollock and I watched the highlights, but I wasn't as invested as I am now as a former player, as a letterman. And maybe I'm a little bit biased for the quarterback position as well. I don't know. Maybe throw all that in there. But the fact that he has done everything that he has done in these past 2 seasons, he's won more championships than anyone else. He's played at an extremely high level. He's been to New York as a Heisman finalist. To me, Stetson Bennett is the greatest Bulldog of all time.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. And it's just amazing. Last year, like a stray dog in the yard, the coaching staff was trying to run him away from the program. And then he turns out to do what he does. It truly is amazing. Now, you talked about him at the next level. What do you think? Just, from your opinion, you NFL guy, what do you think about his potential at the next level?
I like it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Mohamed Massaquoi texted me last week. This was after the national championship. And Mohamed's like, man, I don't know the quarterback position as well as you. I haven't watched as much Alabama film. I've watched a few games. He's like, is there that much of a difference between Bryce Young and Stetson? Like, obviously, Bryce is going to be one of the first 2 quarterbacks taken, him or CJ most likely. Is there that big of a gap where Stetson's a 5th to 7th round pick? And I'm like, honestly, not really. Is there a gap? Yes. Bryce is, I think Stetson has great arm talent. I think Stetson can make every single throw you want. I think Stetson's mobility is tremendous. Bryce is a little bit more of a playmaker, what he's able to do in the pocket. I would say maybe a little bit of a stronger arm, but not a 4 or 5 round difference gap. So I think Stetson's could find his way depending on what happens before him. If the first 4 guys are off the board in the first 15 picks, maybe Stetson finds himself in the 3rd round. I'm thinking more realistic somewhere in that 4th round. And if you're a 4th round quarterback, that means there's some significant money invested in you. You're more than likely going to make a roster. So yeah, Stetson, in my opinion, is a guy that can make a roster, can be a number 2 quarterback. And we've seen from the NFL this year, I think 60 quarterbacks have started. I would say Stetson is better than 5 to 10 of those guys right now.
Oh yeah.
So he's proven to us if he gets the opportunity, he's going to make the most of it. And I think he's going to put himself in a position where the starter goes down, he'll be ready to go and see what he can do. Of
course, and he's older than a lot of NFL quarterbacks, which is, it really is amazing. What team do just, I don't know, you speculate, look out across the NFL land. What team would be a good fit for Stetson Bennett, you think?
Man. I don't know. I have to dive in and see who needs, some backup quarterback. I mean, everyone does.
How about the Buccaneers?
Yeah. Buccaneers need some help. An interesting one to me is Sean Payne. Sean Payne, former coach for New Orleans, is been interviewing with a couple. I want to say universities because I'm in such a school mode right now, but with NFL franchises, and he's an interesting one just because of his relationship with Drew Brees. And Drew Brees is, similar stature to Stetson. I think Stetson is potentially a little bit better in a lot of categories. Drew's an incredible leader. I think that's the one thing that really separated Drew Brees from anyone else is, his work ethic, his accuracy, his timing, his leadership. All those are top of the chart, which is some of the stuff that you really need to do to be a great quarterback. But Stetson has, I would say, if not equal, better arm strength than Drew Brees. He's obviously more athletic than Drew was. Similar body style. So, I'm interested. Does Sean Payne, whether if he gets a job somewhere, whether it's Houston or Denver, does he look at maybe bringing in Stetson, knowing that, hey, I've had success with a similar quarterback?
Yeah, amazing. And it'll be interesting. Now, turning the page, looking forward to next year, the quarterback position, obviously, so critical to a team's success. As you look at the Georgia quarterback room as it is right now, we look to the future. What do you think about the quarterback room in the post Stetson Bennett era? What do you think? How's Georgia going to stack up there?
I think they're going to be great, man. It's going to be some competition. I think the 2 favorites, in my opinion, are going to be Carson and Brock. I love Carson. I think Carson's a stud. And you look at what Georgia's done this offseason, and especially in the portal, and how they're building this offense. You got AD, you got McConkey back, you got Browers back. Then you went out there and got Rara and Lovett from Missouri and from Mississippi State. This is an offense that to me is being built to throw the football, and Carson is in and has been the best arm in that room. So I do think that they're saying, okay, Carson, we're going to lean a little bit more maybe towards you to be the starter. Obviously, still an open competition, but going to give you every opportunity to go out there and win it. And now we're building kind of our army of weapons around you to go out there and really take this offense to another level. So I think it's Carson. I think he has a lot of great attributes. I think he has a hell of an arm. He's accurate. He really showed me a lot this year when he played. And obviously he's been in the offense for a couple of years. He knows it. And now it's his time to go out there and shine.
And I think he's more of a mobile quarterback than some people give him credit for. I think he can do that. Of course, Georgia was not a one-man show. Share with me some of the other stars, standouts from this team that you really kind of want to focus on offensively and defensively that really were the keys to this team this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Bowers. Bowers is, I was fortunate enough to be on some good teams with some good tight ends and be, with Kansas City when Travis Kelce got going and kind of see, how Coach Reed used Travis in a variety of ways, which really opened me up to that position even more. And then I was in Philadelphia when Doug Peterson used, Ertz and how they moved him around. So I've been really fascinated by that position ever since and really seen it take a hold of both the NFL and college games. So, what Brock has done was tremendous. What Kenny did out of the backfield. Obviously, Ladd, had some ups and downs through the season, but really finished on a high note to see his confidence grow. So, those are the ones that really stand out to me on the offense side of the football. Defensively, guys that are coming back next year who really made a huge impact this year and got me really excited are guys like Javon Bullard in the slot, who obviously had the 2 interceptions in that national championship game. Kamari Lassiter and how physical he is on the outside. Malachi Starks back there on the backside too. So, it's a young football team. I think that's what's really giving people a lot of excitement heading towards next season is, you lost some superstars on both sides. Yeah, you lost some leadership, but majority of the guys are returning on both sides of the football. You've added some really key pieces in the transfer portal. I feel really good right now saying Georgia's probably going to be in the playoffs. I think Michigan will probably be back in the playoffs. Other than that, I really don't know who those other 2 teams are going to be. So I think Georgia's in a really, really good spot right now.
Yeah, before the national championship game, I noticed a blog coming out of a writer that covers the Florida Gators. And he posted a story about how Florida Gator fans should be pulling for Georgia to win the national championship. And one of his points was this, that, we should pull for Georgia to win the national championship because the chances of Georgia winning 3 national championships in a row is so small. And that was his reasoning, But yeah. Here's what I think. Hey, if you can win 2 in a row, why can't you win 3 in a row? So,
Well, I think that Kirby said it. I mean, it is true. Like the message last year to a lot of these guys, especially on defense, was, you didn't win that natty. Those 5 or 6 first rounders and the 15 guys that got drafted, those guys won the national championship. So the next guys had that chip on the shoulder. It's great returning all these starters on the football team, but you do worry about complacency. If these guys have now won 2 national championships, they've started, they've played, will they be as mentally focused this offseason to get back up there and fight as hard as they fought the past 2 years? That's going to be the question. Like I talked about earlier, there's no one better right now in college football of motivating these young men than Kirby Smart is. So he will find a way to really get under their skin and get the most out of them in spring and summer and fall camp. So I'm interested to see what his messaging is going to be there. But when it comes to just pure talent, like Georgia will have the most talented football team in college football heading into next season. That doesn't always win it, but at least gets you in the conversation. And now it's up to them to see if they can handle the pressure for a 3rd straight year.
Yeah. Now the SEC likes to say as a conference, it just means more. And so now you have another SEC team winning the national championship. You had 2 Big Ten teams, and the Big 12 runner-up in the semifinals. They all went down. And people love to talk about the SEC bias and all that kind of thing. But it just does mean more. What do you think it is And I know great players and great coaches, but what is it that makes the SEC just the best football conference in the nation? What are the elements that go into
Yeah.
that?
Well, it is the best players. Like the Southeast does have the most talent out there. I mean, the from Florida to Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama, the Carolinas, like that pocket has, the most concentration of really good, a mixture of everything. Athletes, big guys, physical guys that can play at the line of scrimmage. Like the Midwest has really good, physical big guys. The West Coast and California has, really good skill in quarterback and receivers. Well, I would say, like I said, the Southeast has a mixture of all of that. And that's why you see really complete football teams that can win on both offense and defense, not just like USC that can only score or Michigan that just wants to pound you. You have to have the ability to do both. And you find that in the Georgias and in the Alabamas and the Clemsons of the world. So that's why, I think, the fans too, players want to play in front of big stadiums. They want to play in front of great atmospheres and in college towns. And you get more college atmospheres and 90,000+ stadiums, filled up every single weekend in the SEC. You get more primetime coverage in the SEC. So you put all that together, it's going to attract that top talent to stay in those states. And it's also going to attract top talent from California, from the Midwest that want to play big time football, that want to compete for championships, that essentially will travel and leave their home state and where their conference lies to come to the SEC.
Yeah. Well, who do you think are going to be the biggest challengers for Georgia next year? I think Tennessee, South Carolina is improving. As you look across the SEC East and the SEC in general, who's got same players, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, South Carolina got a big boost with Spencer back. They'll be competitive next year, and they seem to get things going right now. I just think there's such a massive talent gap still between Georgia and them. Tennessee, I think Joe Milton is maybe the most talented, gifted quarterback in college football. He looked really good this year. He looked tremendous in the Orange Bowl. Does he take that next step next year? I'm very fascinated to see where that plays out with him in his third year with Heupel. So, I mean, I would say Tennessee, and obviously they have to go to Knoxville next year. It's always a tough place to play. SEC West, I think LSU is the biggest contender. I think Alabama has a lot of questions that need to be answered, especially at the quarterback spot. I don't feel good about them. I think LSU with what they're returning on offense with Jaden and those receivers and those two freshman tackles, I feel pretty confident that team has an opportunity, especially with Brian Kelly's second season, to return back to Atlanta to compete for an SEC championship. So those would be my two, East, Tennessee, West, LSU next year again.
Yeah. Same old guys loading up again. So let's go at it. Let's strap it up and go at it. You talked about Georgia picking up some players from the portal. We've some of the current players from this year's roster moving to the portal. The portal is here to stay in college football. It's not going anywhere. NIL is here to stay. As we've now moved down, 2 or 3 years from the beginning of those elements in college football, any changes you would like to see, and maybe how the portal is handled NIL deals? Is it going as planned? Is it going as it should be? Any changes you see?
No, it's a cluster. It's not going to plan at all. NIL is out of control. Would love to see that more regulated. I'm all for kids getting paid. Just some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes is just, it's too much. And then, I'm all for, once again, same thing with the portal, but I just think there needs to be a little bit better scheduling and more just for coaches. I mean, I was in the Butts-Mehre, week at Christmas and seeing the coaches run around, get ready for a bowl game, get ready for transfer portal and signing day. I mean, there's just way too much going on. Like these coaches have lives, they have families, they have kids, and they're spending essentially around the clock, right around the holidays, dealing with all this stuff. Like there needs to be a little bit better when it comes to scheduling this out, I think just for their sanity. So I know it's still very early for both NIL and transfer portal, but I would like a lot of it to be cleaned up. And hopefully it does here soon, especially for these coaches.
Yeah. I've always wondered why the NCAA is not being a little more proactive and trying to step in and then, control this thing. And maybe they will in the future. Of course, next year you still have the 4-team playoff, scenario, but in 2024 now we go to the playoff expansion. How do you think that's going to change things in college football? It's kind of fun right now to speculate about it, but what do you think about that?
I think it'll be good for the game. Obviously give more teams an opportunity. I still think the best teams will still find a way to win those games and get there. Be tougher for a TCU to have to win 2 or 3 games to get to a national championship. I mean, I've kind of broken down of what TCU's path would have been in order to get there. I think they would have made it to the semifinals, but then they would have had to face probably Ohio State, and Ohio State probably would have beat them, and it would have been Georgia versus Ohio State in the national championship. So, it's going to be a little bit harder. I do think it will create a little bit more equality across the country. When players on the West Coast know that, hey, now Pac-12 teams have a realistic chance to make the playoffs, and maybe I don't need to go to Georgia or Alabama in order to be one of the best teams in the country. Maybe if I want to win, yeah, but if I want to be able to make the playoffs and have that glimmer of hope, I can maybe stay at Southern Cal or USC or Oregon. So I think you'll see more kids stay in their regions of the country because of it. I think overall health of the game will be great. But at the end of the day, we've seen college football change. We've seen it change in the way that it crowns a champion and gets to that. And it's usually still the same players. It's the Alabamas and those guys are really the ones that at the end of the day are still going to be the best ones to end up win the championship at the end.
When I think about college football, and I've been a college football fan for a long time, it's just fun. I mean, it really is.
More games, man. I'm all for more games. At the end of the day, give me more games, and you just listen. You hope that you get what we saw this year in the playoffs: excitement, close games. Yeah, you'll get some blowouts, obviously, but I'm fingers crossed we get more of what we saw this year. Just obviously a little bit more competitive championship.
Yeah, and you don't have that long layoff between the championship games and then the playoffs. And with the with the expansion of the playoffs, of course, with the joy that Georgia had with the national championship game, what a hit in the gut. With the passing of Devin Willock and Chandler LaCroix, and then you had 2 others involved in the accident as well. That was just a tough thing, to see and to experience. Even those who are, have no personal connection with those individuals, yeah. It really hurt. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a family, man. Whether you're, a staff member, player, coach, letterman, current student athlete, recruit, whatever. Once you commit to the G, you're a part of it for life. So, it hurt all of us, especially obviously those on the team that were affected. I talked to Chris Smith last night about it, and you could just see the emotion with him, and that's one of his brothers. It's someone you are with, all the time, practice, meetings, and just everyone. So yeah, prayers for everyone involved, for those families, and just for Bulldog Nation. Like I said, man, once a Bulldog, always a Bulldog. So, we all feel it when we lose one of our own.
Yeah, and I did notice today also, I think the Spike Squad lost a former member today. So, sometimes life really hits you. We love football, but sometimes life really hits you. Well, it's been our great pleasure to have always Aaron Murray with us here on our program. Aaron, thank you for taking time to talk with us. God bless you and your wonderful family. It's a growing family. You're a good dad, and you do a great job with ESPN, and we appreciate you taking time and joining us, okay?
Appreciate you. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Dawgs on Demand would like to thank Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs, for sponsoring our program today. When the time comes to finance or refinance your home, make the smart choice and get your home loan from Southeast Mortgage. Your friends at Southeast Mortgage are ready to help you. Visit southeastmortgage.com/UGA today for more information. Be sure to visit Dawgs on Demand on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and our great interactive website, dogsondemand.com. Join us for our next program as we keep you up to date with the latest sports news from the University of Georgia and more. Until then, be safe and go Dogs.